Welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short, your Bible teacher and cultural analyst, and today we're going to try to make some sense out of something in the news that involves the largest Baptist denomination in the country, the Southern Baptist Convention, and someone in their administration was fired but then rehired very shortly after that. So what is this all about, and what is the issue that this centered on? And we're going to get into a religious news service article about Brent Leatherwood. He is the ERLC president, which is the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention. So that is sort of the committee that interacts with faith and culture and tries to apply the biblical truths to our cultural situation, our national news, the government, the arts, the culture, and it's sort of where the biblical truths are supposed to meet the cultural setting today. So this man, Brent Leatherwood, is the president, and it says he was fired a day after praising Biden. So what did he say about President Joe Biden that got him fired, but then later he got rehired? So let's get into this controversy, and hopefully we'll try to bring some sanity into the situation. A lot of things are happening this week in the news. We're having, for example, in the last couple weeks, we've had former President Trump shot at and almost killed. Then we've had this big controversy with the Secret Service. Why didn't they protect him? What were they doing? Why were they letting the shooter wander around? All kinds of questions there. And then, of course, Joe Biden, the president, announces that he is in fact not going to be running for a second term, even though he was running, and he was telling people that he was definitely going to be running just a week ago, and all of a sudden he's changed, and now he's not going to be running, and now the vice president, Harris, is now going to be the candidate instead of Biden, and it's all very confusing. Well, Christians can easily get caught up in the confusion and begin to say confusing things and do confusing things along with the rest of the people who are confused. So confusion breeds confusion. As Christians, we need to cut through that confusion and try to think level-headedly and prayerfully and use discernment, biblical discernment, the Bible as our standard, and try to figure out what's going on and how we should react to the things that are going on. So let's get into this article, and I'll try to make some commentary and hopefully help this situation as far as understanding it. It says Leatherwood has been criticized for other positions on topics key interest to Southern Baptists, such as not supporting legislation that would have jailed women who chose abortion. And I think I actually did a video. I did do a video about him saying that he says, well, we shouldn't be jailing women. And again, basically a left-wing Democratic talking point. And the question is, well, if a woman does a crime, are you saying the woman shouldn't be jailed, shouldn't be sentenced? She shouldn't have to have any repercussions or consequences to her actions, but men alone should be jailed, and they have to pay for their crimes and breaking the law? What is this special carve out for women that they don't have to face the justice when they do something wrong? So here's an inconsistency here. He was saying that women who have abortions in states that rule that abortion is illegal, which is a totally consistent Christian position, he's saying that, well, we shouldn't be jailing women. Well, why not? If they've committed a crime, if they've committed the sin of abortion, and the state recognizes abortion as a crime, then of course you would jail women who break the law in this regard, just like in any other respect to breaking the law. So he's trying to somehow appease the left and trying to win friends on the far left and the liberals. And in so doing, he's acting inconsistently and he's acting irrational as far as a Christian perspective on things. And he is the guy who is the one who is in charge of the Ethics Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptists, which you would want a guy who would actually speak consistently Christian, and he's not doing that. So He does on some things, but he does not on other things. So that raises questions. Is this man competent to be leading a faith and culture committee when he can't seem to apply biblical truth to the culture? The article says the leader of Southern Baptist Convention's ethics and public policy entity was fired Monday, July 22nd, a day after he praised President Joe Biden's decision to end his re-election bid. So let me skip down at this point. The article doesn't, but let me skip down to what he actually said. After Joe Biden resigned from candidacy, he's not stepping down from president as of yet. That may happen, but he didn't in his announcement. He just said he's not going to run a second term, even though he's been running for a second term. So this decision he made, he tweeted out and said that he will not be seeking a second term. Here's Brent Leatherwood, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission president and spokesman for the Southern Baptist Convention on issues concerning the culture. He said, "We should all express our appreciation that President Biden has put the needs of the nation above his own personal ambition," Leatherwood said. "Despite what some partisans will say, to walk away from power is a selfless act, the kind that has become all too rare in our culture." So think about that. The spin that Brent Leatherwood is putting on President Biden's his stepping away from a second term. It's actually not true what he's saying, and he's attributing to Biden virtues that Biden does not have and do not apply in this situation. Joe Biden was forced to resign from running for a second term because after his debate performance with Trump a few weeks ago, it was very clear to everyone that you could not hide the fact that Joe Biden has diminished capacity, cognitive decline, and he simply can't be counted on to say things that are understandable, that are intelligible. His mind is not working right. His mouth is not working right. He doesn't have energy. He's senile. He's getting old. And it became obvious to everyone at that debate that Joe Biden was not fit to be the president. Even now, he's not fit to be the president because he's not capable of communicating and making decisions on his own. Now, the Democrats and the leftists and the liberals have made a big deal about the fact that, Joe Biden has declined. The debate showed it. Well, they're trying to say that all of a sudden this has come on Joe Biden. That is a lie. That is a spin. That is propaganda. That is gaslighting. Everyone could see that Joe Biden was already in cognitive decline even before he took office in 2021 after the election, which was highly controversial because of the widespread, I would say, rigged laws and formulas for counting votes in Democratic counties. And he took office under a cloud of suspicion of voter fraud and all kinds of irregularities. But at that point, it was very clear he had cognitive decline. And the Republicans and just common sense people would look at him speak and talk and interaction and walk and conduct himself and realize, hey, this man has a senility and he's probably not fit to be president. But the Democrats continued to gaslight and say, oh no, he's as sharp as a tack. He's better than ever. And even the media, the news media, mainstream media would cover for him and make excuses. Well, he was tired here, or he had just come off the plane and blah, blah, blah. Every time he would make a gaffe or he would make a mistake or slur his words or do something, they would have an explanation as to why that's okay, because that's just Joe Biden, stuttering or whatever. So they kept on denying this whole cognitive problem for years and years and years. Finally, at this debate the last few weeks ago with Trump, it was painfully obvious that Biden had a problem cognitively. and no one could deny it. You couldn't spin it. You couldn't gaslight the American people. It was so clear. And then finally, the Democrats and the liberals admitted that Joe Biden is too old and he's too senile and he's not fit to run a second term. They finally came out with that conclusion when they started looking at the polls, especially that showed Trump leading, even in all of the swing states after the assassination attempt. They realized that Joe Biden could not beat Donald Trump. And that is why Joe Biden resigned, because the Democratic leadership, whether it's a small cabal of people like Obama, Clinton, and some of the Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, some of the leading Democrats, whether it's a small group that they decided that Biden had to go, or whether it was the Democratic Party leadership, official party leadership, or whatever, it was decided that Joe Biden could not run a second term because he would lose to Donald Trump in a landslide. And so they decided for him, because just a week ago, Joe Biden was telling people, I'm running, there's no problem with me. And he gave an interview, I think it was with Lester Holt, and he was still fighting and saying, yes, I'm just as good as I was before, and I'm running a second term, and don't let anybody tell you that I have problems. Why don't you focus on some of the problems that Trump has, blah, blah, blah. So he's still fighting. A week ago, all of a sudden, the bigwigs in the Democratic Party tell him, Joe, you got to go because you're not going to win. The polls are telling us that you would lose to Trump big. And so reluctantly, he was forced out of office. That's the truth, okay? So when Brent Leatherwood, the president of the ERLC, says what he said, let me read it again. We should all express our appreciation for President Biden has put the needs of the nation above his own personal ambition. No, we don't appreciate President Biden because he did not put his own country above his own personal needs. That is not the reason why he left, and that's not the reason why he's not in the race right now. The reason is because he got kicked out by his own party. He was forced to resign. And this kind of spinning and propaganda and gaslighting by Brent Leatherwood is the same kind of spinning, propaganda, and gaslighting the Democratic Party does to the nation all the time. And it's really disturbing to see a Christian leader falling into that same kind of deception. This is deception. He said, despite what some partisans will say, to walk away from power is a selfless act. Joe Biden did not walk away from power as a selfless act. He walked away from power. He didn't walk away from power. He was pushed out of power. He was given an ultimatum. If someone puts a gun to your head and tells you you have to do something, then you can't go and say, well, this person willingly did this and that. No, it's a lie. Joe Biden was forced out of the second term candidacy by leading Democrats who said, look, we're not going to beat Trump with you running a second term. That is the simple truth. And he didn't want to go because a week before, he was gung-ho about running the second term. And now he is telling the nation that he is stepping aside. Now, this article was written before Biden gave his official reason to the nation at the Oval Office. And what he said was, I'm stepping away and giving the younger leaders an opportunity to lead. Again, that is a lie. That is not a truthful summary of why he's leaving. He is not stepping aside or stepping down from running a second term because he's so concerned about the young leadership of the Liberal and Democratic Party having their opportunity. No, he is stepping down because he was told he had to by the party officials and by Obama and Clinton's and Pelosi's and the Schumers and all of the other powerful Democrats. He was told he had to. It was a party decision made for him. Whether he wanted to leave or not, he had to. So it's not a selfless act when you're forced to do something. And Brent Leatherwood knows it, and everyone else knows it. And yeah, if it were purely a selfless act, then Brent Leatherwood would be totally correct, the kind that has become all too rare in our culture. Yes, it would be a rare act of selfless charity for him to do this. But that's not the case. So if you say it's the case, you're lying, you're deceiving, you're gaslighting. And so Brent Leatherwood is lying and deceiving and gaslighting. And everyone knows it. And that's what got him fired. It says, in accordance with our bylaws, the Executive Committee has removed Brent Leatherwood as president. The Executive Committee of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission said in a statement Monday. Further details, as well as plans for the transition, will be provided at our September board meeting. No details were given about why Leatherwood, who was named ERLC president in September 2022, was removed from his position. It is not clear whether the ERLC's full board of trustees was asked to review the decision before it was made or why Leatherwood was fired. Leatherwood did not respond to a request for comment. So it occurred right after he praised Joe Biden. In a story on Biden's withdrawal from the presidential race, Baptist Press, an official SBC publication, quoted Leatherwood saying Biden has done the right thing in ending his campaign. Biden hasn't done the right thing. He was doing what he had to do because he was told to do that, or threatened that if he didn't, bad things would happen. The two-sentence quote posted on X by the official account of the ERLC led to an online dust-up in which Leatherwood's critics, which included Tom Askell, pastor of Grace Baptist Church, Cape Coral, Florida, called Leatherwood to account for a number of his recent positions. Askell is known as a firebrand even in the staunchly conservative SBC. In June, he asked the delegates at the SBC meeting, the denomination's governing body, to shutter the ERLC. His motion failed. So this gentleman, Tom Askell, made a motion that the Southern Baptists dissolve this whole culture committee, which might not be a bad idea if you have people who are basically parroting the Democratic talking points. Askell and other critics said Leatherwood has been too soft on the issue of abortion, citing Leatherwood's opposition to legislation that would have jailed women who have abortions. Yes, if abortion is illegal in a state and a woman goes ahead and defies the state law, then she is a criminal and she needs to be punished according to the law. That's common sense. Leatherwood also called for gun law reforms after the shooting in March 2023 at Nashville, Tennessee, Christian school where his children were students. He also criticized the GOP for dropping anti-abortion language from its platform. Well, that is a good criticism. So this Brent Leatherwood, he mimics leftist talking points sometimes, but then he also gives some good statements. So he's a mixed bag. Askell praised the news that Leatherwood had been fired, mimicking Leatherwood's praise for Biden. Not only is this rhetoric this historic decision, it is the right decision for our convention, he wrote on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Despite what some will say, for the trustees to remove Brent from his position of power is a righteous act, the kind that has become all too rare among trustees in our recent SBC culture. So he's sort of parroting what Leatherwood said, only differently. So it's pretty clear that someone on the committee, the governing committee, for the ERLC was really mad that this dishonest statement was made by Brent Leatherwood praising Biden for his character and his putting aside personal ambition and his selfless act, which was all false. It didn't happen that way. Now, what has since happened is that now evidently, it says ERLC reverses course, now says Brent Leatherwood was not fired. So the kerfuffle over Leatherwood's status, which played out in competing press releases from ERLC leaders, is the latest controversy for the SBC's public policy arm. So this man, Brent Leatherwood, is back on the job and reinstated. And what evidently happened was there were people who are really angry at his initial statement praising Biden because it was so dishonest. And I can understand that. But once that initial outrage settled down, then it looks like some even higher ups in the Southern Baptist Convention reconsidered and said, no, wait a minute. Yeah, we don't like what he said. We think it's totally dishonest and gaslighting and just mimicking the leftist talking points. And Biden is not virtuous, and he did not step down for selfless reasons. He did so because he was pushed out by his own party. But be that as it may, it probably wasn't something that should have gotten Brent Leatherwood fired. So then the statement now reads, Brent Leatherwood remains the president of the ERLC and has our support moving forward. So it was reversed. The firing was reversed. And so evidently the thinking was, yeah, his statement about Biden was wrong. It was bad. It was cowardly. It was pandering. But he doesn't deserve to get fired. And it says there was not an authorized meeting, vote, or action taken by the executive committee. So it looks like there was a sort of a subcommittee that actually issued the firing, and it wasn't the full authorized committee who made the decision. So Brent Leatherwood is back. And this whole kerfuffle or debacle or whatever you want to call it could be avoided in the future if just Brent Leatherwood and other leaders would just simply be honest and stop pandering and stop catering to the left and to the Democrats and to the liberals. Just state the truth. Don't get into this political spin doctoring that we see all over. Now, for example, Joe Biden appears before the United States population and says, I'm not running for a second term, and I made a decision because I want the new leadership to have an opportunity to lead. No, you don't. You're leaving, and if you were honest, you would say, my party has come to me and asked me to step down, and so I'm stepping down against my will. That's the truth. But of course, he can't say that. He won't say that. And so now there's all kinds of spinning going on with the Vice President Harris. And she's now going to spin how Joe Biden is endorsing her. And you just really get tired of the lies and deceptions in the political process. And now you have that lying and deception in the denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, and in the churches. And that has to stop. The church is a place where you can expect truth and you speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That is the whole point of, in the book of Acts, for example, Ananias and Sapphira. Ananias and Sapphira said that they were going to give all the money from the sale of their property to the church to help the church out. And the early church, all the people applauded and thanked them for that. Come to find out, they sold the land and then they kept part of the proceeds for themselves and gave the rest to the church, which was a lie. They had said they were going to give the whole amount to the church. Now you might say, well, that's a trifle, why make a big deal about it? It's an issue of truth. Are you going to give the amount that you said you would give? Are you going to be honest and truthful, or are you going to lie and keep part of it? Yes or no? So God dealt very severely with Ananias and Sapphira actually taking their lives. And that was supposed to be a lesson to the church, that the church is a place, a sanctuary for truth. You have to be able to come to church and know you're getting the truth. You can't have these lies and spins and deception and gaslighting. And that's the problem with what Brent Leatherwood said. Now, whether he should be fired or not, I don't know whether he should be fired. He should be reprimanded. He should be admonished, rebuked, possibly, and say, look, keep that gaslighting and spinning and propaganda out of our churches. Don't attribute to Joe Biden virtues that he does not have or does not display. He was not stepping aside for a second term out of the goodness of his heart. He was threatened with things, I don't know what, but somebody threatened him and said, you need to step aside, step down, stand down. That's what, actually, Joe Biden's statement when he announced this was really strange. He said, I've decided to stand down. It's almost like that is what he was told by the higher ups in the Democratic Party. You need to stand down. And that's what you would tell someone, a soldier, stand down. And Joe Biden, of course, didn't want to, based on the previous statements that he's made. And he did, against his will, decide not to run for a second term. And that is not making a selfless act. That is not displaying the virtue of selfless kindness or thinking of the nation ahead of yourself or putting aside ambition. No. He still has the same amount of ambition that he had before. He's still as selfish as he was before, except he had to come up with a rationale for quitting because he was told that he had to. And Brent Leatherwood putting a spin on his actions and trying to make it sound great. This has no place in the church. And I know that a lot of churches do this, especially the so-called seeker-sensitive megachurches, where they will talk about things in veiled generalities and they will put spins on things. We saw this happen, for example, with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Some of these megachurches would not even acknowledge that Donald Trump almost died. They wouldn't even say anything about his name. They wouldn't mention his name. The only thing they would say is we need to pray for the end of political violence in our country. Some general vague spin that you could hear any leftist, liberal Democrats say in respect to this. Basically acknowledging the bare minimum and not even praying for a person specifically for his well-being. This kind of political maneuvering and this kind of political thinking and this PR, public relations spin, there's no place in the church for that. Jesus said, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. Speak the truth, but speak it in love. So you've got to be able to speak the truth. And this flattery, this pandering, that's what Brent Leatherwood was doing. He was flattering Joe Biden. He was lathering him up. He was trying to, I guess, win points with liberals and leftists. But again, we need to speak the truth and speak it in love and not play these games, because we're all sick of those, right? We're sick of the spin doctors. We want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We need that coming from the church, especially in these days. Hope that's been helpful. See you back next week. God bless.